put stuff away.
Good?
All right, here we go.
That is a sporadically, but huge, reoccurring social phenomenon that people in a society become invested with a belief in something, and no evidence before their eyes will controvert that belief. They will curse their own children rather than not believe the illusion that they are all sharing. And that was part of the church scandals that interested me. This comes from an interview done of John Patrick Shanley for the Denver Post. And I chose this quote because I think it's just juicy. I think it really kind of describes everything in the play and kind of what he was feeling towards writing it. The purpose of my speech today is to discuss 3 themes found in Doubt and to lead you in a dialogue over these themes. To prepare for this speech, I read the play, Doubt, and read reviews of the play and interviews of John Patrick Shanley. The preview of the main points today that we'll be talking about is power, doubt, and change. Now that our main points have been outlined, let's discuss our first theme, power. My first piece of evidence comes from a review done by Albert Williams for the Chicago Reader in 2019. He says, though Aloysius is the principal at the school where Flynn teaches, as a male priest he outranks her, and she fears the church's male-dominated power structure might ignore or cover up the cause, or the case. I like this first quote because it shows that even though Sister Aloysius is the principal and should have more power than Flynn, Flynn has more power just because he's a man. This was true in the male-dominated Catholic Church of the 1960s and is still prevalent to this day. My second piece of evidence comes from a review done by Barbara McKay for DCMetroTheaterArts.com. In it, she says, Flynn's second sermon, after he has been confronted by Aloysius, is a beautifully constructed riff on gossip. Whether he is arguing with Aloysius, consoling James, coaching his boys in basketball, or addressing his flock, he consistently strikes the right tone. I like this quote because it demonstrates how Flynn is able to command attention and power through unconventional ways. Though through how he talks, he is able to have some sort of power over others. My third piece of evidence comes right from the play, in scene 4, in a dialogue between Sister James and Sister Aloysius. Can't you just report your suspicions? To Monsignor Benedict, the man's guileless. He would just ask Father Flynn. Well, would that be such a bad idea? He would have believed whatever Flynn told him. He would think the matter settled. This bit of dialogue encapsulates both of the former points I just made, that men are seen as superior in the Catholic Church, and that Flynn is able to be believed through how he talks. Now that we've discussed some evidence, I'd like to pose a question for you regarding power. Do we see this form of power through speech in any significant areas of our society today? Now that we've discussed our first theme, let's discuss our second theme, doubt. The theme, not the play. My first piece of evidence comes from the godfather of theater reviews, Ben Brantley for the New York Times. He says, Mr. Shanley is on no one's side. It seems safe to say the playwright agrees with Father Flynn when he explains his preference for parables over reality. The truth makes for a bad sermon. It tends to be confusing and have no clear conclusion. But doubt presents each point of view with reasonableness and an eloquence that never seems out of sync with the characters' Bronx accents and ecumenical backgrounds. I chose this quote because it talks about how Shanley seemed to write a script with the hope that you can't form a solid opinion about anything in the show. It just adds to the mystery and spectacle about what is true and what isn't. My second piece of evidence comes from a review for New York Magazine done by John Simon. No one is totally right. Even Father Flynn won't reveal certain things, keeping us, too, in a state of doubt that Shanley says can be a passionate exercise. I like this quote because it comments on how Flynn is a shifty guy. There are certain parts of the play where he seems believable, and there are parts where it seems Aloysius almost wants to believe him too, but then we find out more information that's withheld from us and it makes us question everything we just thought. My third piece of evidence comes from the play. In scene 9, a dialogue between Sister James and Sister Aloysius. I wish I could be like you. Why? Because I can't sleep at night anymore. Everything seems uncertain to me. Maybe we're not supposed to sleep so well. I love this quote. It feels juicy. I like that it combines everything we feel about this show and our doubt towards others in general. Now that we've discussed some evidence about the theme of doubt, I'd like to pose a question. Is there any way we can truly combat doubt? How do we know if we can truly trust someone? Now that we've discussed our second theme, let's discuss our final theme, change. My first piece of evidence comes from Albert Williams in the same review as I mentioned in my first point. Aloysius, a traditionalist, thinks that the church must project bedrock certainty, even though she chafes at its restrictions on her authority as a woman. Flynn, a liberal, advocates a welcoming, inclusive church, but he also clings to his privileged, protected position as a male in the ultimate boys' club. I like this quote because it talks about both the differences and the characters, and it kind of ties into my first point about power. My second piece of evidence comes from Elise Sommer's review of the play for CurtainUp.com. She explains the difference between Sister Aloysius and Sister James. As a result, she, Sister James, likes Father Flynn's idea that the students should sing a secular song at the year's Christmas pageant. When James suggests the children should sing Frosty the Snowman, Sister Aloysius makes her disapproval clear, saying Frosty the Snowman espouses a pagan belief in magic. I chose this quote because it provides a nice example for the difference in opinions between Sister James and Sister Aloysius. We obviously see it as a nice, fun little children's song, and Sister Aloysius believes it's witchcraft. My third piece of evidence comes directly from the play, and scene 5 between Sister Aloysius and Father Flynn. Sister Aloysius: no, if the boy drank altar wine, he cannot continue as an altar boy. Flynn: of course, you're right. I'm just not the disciplinarian you are, sister, and he is the only Negro in the school. That did affect my thinking on the matter. It will be commented on that he's no longer serving at Mass. It's a public thing. A certain ignorant element in the parish will be confirmed in their beliefs. I like this quote because it talks about this unwanted change from a character outside of the play. It also ties into the time period. With this play taking place in the 1960s, civil rights were obviously a highly debated topic, and that's also very centered around change. Now that we've discussed this theme of change, I'd like to pose a question for discussion. What are the biggest obstacles against change in society? Is change always a good thing? Now that we've established our 3 themes, I'd like to invite you all to have a dialogue about the themes presented today.